Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Growth Digger. I'm your host, Taran Nandha, founder and CEO at Growth Natives. As businesses scale, they invest in better technology, larger teams, and stronger go to market strategies. Yet many still struggle with inconsistent forecasts, disconnected teams, and missed revenue goals. More often than not, the issue isn't a lack of talent or tools, it's a lack of clear ownership across the revenue journey. That's exactly what we're discussing today: what RevOps ownership looks like in high growth teams. Joining me is Rahul Sindwani, VP, Operations at Growth Natives. Rahul works closely with organizations to build scalable revenue operations and help teams stay aligned as they grow. Rahul, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Taran. Happy to be here. RevOps has become a popular topic, but many companies still see it as an operational function focused on CRMs or reporting. In reality, RevOps is much broader. It's about creating alignment between marketing, sales, and customer success so every team contributes to the same revenue goals. As companies grow, that alignment becomes one of the biggest drivers of predictable growth.
Let's start with the basics. When people hear RevOps ownership, they often think of CRM management or dashboards. Is that really what RevOps owns?
Not quite. Those are important tools, but they aren't the purpose of RevOps. RevOps ownership means taking responsibility for how revenue flows across the business. It ensures marketing, sales, and customer success work from the same data, follow connected processes, and measure success using shared metrics. Instead of optimizing one department, RevOps focuses on improving the entire revenue engine.
So it's less about owning technology and more about owning the customer journey.
Exactly. Technology supports the process, but ownership is about making sure every stage of that journey works together. When teams operate with the same goals and reliable data, decision making becomes much faster and revenue becomes far more predictable.
These challenges seem to become more visible as organizations grow. Why is ownership harder to maintain in high growth companies?
Growth naturally creates complexity, teams become specialized, more tools are introduced, and every department develops its own priorities. Marketing focuses on lead generation, sales on pipeline, and customer success on retention. Each team may perform well individually, but without shared ownership, they begin working in silos. That's when businesses experience inconsistent forecasts, slow handoffs, and conflicting performance metrics.
So the problem isn't that people aren't doing their jobs, it's that the organization isn't operating as one connected system.
Exactly. High growth companies don't scale by making individual teams work harder. They scale by creating alignment across every stage of the revenue journey. That's where RevOps ownership makes the biggest difference.
Now that we've established what RevOps ownership means, let's talk about how it works in practice. We often hear the term RevOps operating model, but what does that actually look like inside a high growth organization?
A RevOps operating model is essentially the blueprint for how revenue teams work together. Instead of marketing, sales, and customer success operating independently, they follow shared processes, common definitions, and unified goals. For example, everyone agrees on what qualifies as a lead when a prospect moves to the next stage and how success is measured. That consistency reduces confusion and helps leaders make decisions using reliable data instead of assumptions.
So the operating model isn't about adding more processes, it's about creating clarity.
Exactly. The goal is to simplify execution, not complicate it. When teams follow the same playbook, handoffs become smoother, reporting becomes more accurate, and revenue becomes easier to predict. It also helps identify bottlenecks early, allowing teams to solve issues before they impact business performance.
Another important question is where RevOps should sit within the organization. Does the reporting structure really make a difference?
It absolutely does. In many companies, RevOps starts within sales or marketing operations. But as the business grows, revenue becomes a shared responsibility, and RevOps needs a broader perspective. High growth organizations give RevOps executive visibility because its role extends beyond operations. It influences planning, forecasting, and cross functional priorities, ensuring every team is working toward the same business objectives.
So RevOps evolves from supporting departments to influencing business strategy.
That's right. When RevOps has leadership support, it can resolve alignment issues faster, improve collaboration, and help the organization make better revenue decisions instead of simply reporting on past performance.
Let's talk about accountability because that's another area where organizations often get confused. When we say RevOps owns the revenue engine, does that mean RevOps is responsible for everything?
Not at all. That's probably one of the biggest misconceptions. RevOps doesn't replace marketing, sales, or customer success. Each team continues to own its core responsibilities. What RevOps owns is the connection between those teams. It ensures everyone is working toward the same revenue goals, using the same data, and following consistent processes.
So it's less about doing the work and more about making sure the work fits together.
Exactly. Think of RevOps as the team that keeps the entire revenue engine running smoothly. If one department changes a process or introduces a new metric, RevOps looks at how that impacts every other team. That visibility helps prevent small operational issues from turning into bigger revenue challenges.
And I think that's where companies often struggle. Teams become very good at optimizing their own performance, but not necessarily the overall customer journey.
That's true. Individual success doesn't always translate into business success. A marketing campaign might generate more leads, but if sales can't qualify them efficiently or customer success isn't prepared for onboarding, the customer experience suffers. RevOps helps teams think beyond departmental KPIs and focus on one shared outcome: predictable revenue growth.
As companies continue growing, they also add more tools, more processes, and more data. How does RevOps keep all of that under control?
That's where governance becomes critical. Governance isn't about creating more approvals or slowing teams down, it's about creating consistency. RevOps establishes common definitions for data, standardizes lifecycle stages, and ensures system changes follow a structured process. Without that discipline, every department starts creating its own version of the truth, making reporting and forecasting much harder.
So, good governance actually enables faster execution because everyone is working from the same foundation.
Exactly. When leaders trust the data, they spend less time debating numbers and more time making decisions. That's one of the biggest benefits of strong RevOps governance. It creates confidence across the organization.
We've talked about strategy, leadership, and governance. Let's make this practical. If a company has strong RevOps ownership, what are some signs that it's working?
You'll notice it in everyday operations. Forecasts become more reliable because everyone is working with the same data. Handoffs between marketing, sales, and customer success are smoother, and leaders spend less time resolving operational issues. Another clear sign is that decisions become proactive rather than reactive. Instead of discovering problems after a quarter ends, teams identify trends early and make adjustments before they impact revenue.
So, RevOps isn't just improving efficiency, it's helping the business become more predictable.
Exactly. Predictability is one of the biggest outcomes of strong RevOps ownership. When teams trust the process and the data, they can focus on improving performance instead of constantly fixing misalignment. We always begin with the business, not the technology. First, we understand how revenue flows across the organization and identify where alignment breaks down. Then, we define ownership, streamline processes, standardize reporting, and build a governance framework that supports long term growth. Only after that do we look at the technology stack. Tools are important, but they should support the operating model, not define it.
Before we wrap up, Rahul, what's the one message you'd like our listeners to take away from today's conversation?
I'd say this: high growth companies don't scale simply by adding more people or more technology. They scale by creating clarity around ownership. When marketing, sales, and customer success operate as one connected revenue team, execution becomes faster, forecasting becomes more reliable, and growth becomes far more predictable. That's the real value of RevOps ownership.
Great insights, Rahul. Thanks for joining us and sharing your perspective. And thank you to everyone listening. If your revenue teams are growing but alignment is becoming a challenge, it may be time to rethink how RevOps is structured within your organization. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of The Growth Digger.